I knew the laughter was aimed at me the moment I stepped onto the marble courtyard of the Napa Valley estate. It carried across the afternoon air, sharp, bright, and rehearsed. My parents, Howard and Elise Dalton, stood near the fountain with matching smirks, champagne glasses in hand. "Well, isn't this precious?" my mother said loudly, nudging my father. "Our daughter at a luxury auction. Did they lower the standards this year?" A few guests snickered. My father added, "Careful, Elise. She might try to bid with those little non-profit checks she's so proud of." I was 33 now, but at that moment, they still saw the girl they used to belittle at every family dinner. I didn't flinch. I kept walking, heels steady on the stone, chin high. Silence has always been my sharpest weapon. What they didn't know was that my life had changed the moment I left home at 25. After years of being told I'd amount to nothing, I moved to Santa Barbara, built a historical restoration firm from the ground up, and after one massive private contract with a Silicon Valley investor, my finances looked very different from what my parents imagined. The mansion before us was legendary, a 1,920 hillside estate with 11 bedrooms, Italian gardens, restored fresco ceilings, and a view of the vineyards that made half the county drool. Rumor put the opening bid at $14 million. My parents were desperate for it. "This house," my mother had bragged for months, "is going to be the crown jewel of the Dalton legacy." Funny. No one ever asked if I wanted to be part of that legacy. I walked to the registration tent. The clerk glanced at my ID, then quickly checked the file. Her posture changed instantly. "Welcome, Miss Hartley," she said. "You're approved for full bidding clearance." Behind me, my parents stiffened. The auction began in the courtyard. Bidders lifted paddles, numbers climbing, my parents sweating through their confidence. When the price hit $16.5 million, they hesitated. I didn't. I raised my paddle, calm, steady, final. Gasps rippled. Going once. Twice. My mother spun around, eyes wide. "Rachel. You can't be serious." "Sold." Silence crashed over the courtyard. I walked past them toward my new mansion. My father whispered, stunned, How did you do that?" I smiled softly. "You never bothered to ask who I became." And then I walked up the terrace steps. Into the home they tried to claim. And the life they swore I'd never reach. Full clearance. "You mean," my cousin Brielle sputtered, staring at the clerk as if the woman had just announced the earth was flat. The registration attendant gave her a professional, polite smile. "Only registered bidders beyond this point, ma'am." "And stay." Brielle's eyes snapped back to the silver paddle in my hand, like it personally betrayed her. I could practically hear her thoughts scrambling. Rachel? Registered? Approved for full bidding? It didn't fit the version of me she'd been parroting at family gatherings for years. Inside the mansion courtyard, whispers floated between groups of polished bidders. Investors discussed rental projections, developers debated renovation costs, and old money families compared vineyard plans. I stepped into a quiet corner beneath a stone archway, watching the auctioneer adjust his microphone. My pulse quickened not with fear, but with certainty. I knew exactly where this was heading. The Daltons had been bragging for months about this estate. For 3 generations, my father's family dreamt of owning a Napa hillside mansion. They spoke about it like destiny, as if reclaiming some imaginary legacy would wash away their own failures. They never imagined the person they mocked me would be the one standing between them and their prize. Life has a beautiful sense of irony. Because the one family member they spent years belittling? She was the wealthiest person in this courtyard. And they had no idea. "Ladies and gentlemen," the auctioneer called, lifting his hand, "we begin in 60 seconds. Across the courtyard, Brielle's loud whisper carried. "Watch, she'll faint before she even bids." In Entrenstatement, and Rata 22's 200, I inhaled slowly, letting her words roll off me. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan, my financial advisor. "Funds cleared. You're ready, Rachel." Warmth moved through my chest, not because of the money, but because someone finally believed in me, supported me, stood with me, a family of my choosing. The auctioneer struck the gavel sharply. "We will begin bidding for the Hartwell Ridge estate at $8 million. Immediately, paddles rose 15, maybe 20. 8.5. 9. 9.4. My parents joined, shoulders high, confidence radiating like perfume. 9.6. My mother Elise called, voice triumphant. My relatives applauded as if they'd already moved in. I simply leaned against the stone pillar, checking my watch. Evan had been precise. Everyone else's budget would collapse at exactly 10 million. And I was just getting started. 10.2. 10.4. Only 4 bidders remained now, and one of them was my family. I slid my paddle between my fingers, feeling its weight. The auctioneer wiped his brow dramatically. 10,500,000. Do we have 10 to 6? My Aunt Lorraine hesitated. I watched her shoulders tense, her confidence thinning. This was their ceiling. I knew it. They knew it. She leaned toward my uncle, voice sharp with panic. We can't go higher. Not unless we sell something off. The auctioneer lifted his chin. 10.5, going once. My cousins straightened proudly. They actually believed they were seconds away from owning the estate that had consumed their conversations for months. Going twice. I raised my paddle. Calm. Controlled. 11 million. The courtyard gasped, a wave of shock rolling through the crowd. Even the auctioneer's eyes widened with excitement. We have 11 million from bidder 73. Dozens of heads turned toward me. My relatives went stone still, mouths open, as if their brains needed a moment to reboot. Brielle stuttered. She what? She can't. But I wasn't done. The auctioneer scanned the courtyard. Do we have 11.1? Silence answered him. Not a single paddle moved. Aunt Lorraine lifted her chin, trying to salvage dignity. We don't compete with theatrics. The auctioneer raised his gavel high. 11 million. Going once. My pulse thrummed, steady. Going twice. A collective inhale passed through the courtyard. Sold to Miss Rachel Hartley. Accepted. The gavel cracked like thunder, and I lowered my paddle, letting the smallest, quietest smile touch my lips. The woman they mocked. The daughter they dismissed. She had just purchased the estate they built their fantasies around. Whispers rippled. Eyes tracked me. Some looked impressed, others confused. But the only reactions I cared about were the stunned, trembling ones. From my own family. Aunt Lorraine stormed toward me, heels stabbing the stone. Rachel, she hissed, tell me you didn't actually bid. You don't have that kind of money. I met her glare with ease. Why does that bother you so much? She blinked, thrown off. It doesn't. We don't want you embarrassing yourself. I tilted my head. Funny. You didn't care about that when you all laughed at me walking in. Aunt Lorraine's face reddened immediately. Before she could form a comeback, my cousin Trevor stepped forward, shoulders squared like he was preparing for a family showdown. Look, he scoffed, if you wanted attention, you didn't need to bid on an estate. Just say something next time. I exhaled slowly. I didn't do this for attention. They stared, confused, waiting, still clinging to the version of me they constructed years ago. The girl working double shifts in a Sacramento coffee shop. The girl saving coins to pay for community college textbooks. The girl they assumed would never escape the shadow of their judgment. But that girl was long gone. Brielle folded her arms tightly. So? Are you going to explain how you magically afford an $11 million estate? Or is this just another one of your delusions? I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only they could hear. I don't owe you a breakdown of my finances. But I will say this: while you spent years gossiping about me, I spent mine building something real. Their expressions shifted, uncertain, uneasy. It wasn't magic, I added. It was work. Work you never saw because you never cared to look past your own assumptions. Before they could respond, an auction staff member approached with a tablet. Miss Hartley, congratulations. Please follow me to finalize the paperwork. Thank you, I said, walking past my silent relatives. Their quiet wasn't just shock, it was closure. Inside the office, everything happened quickly: signatures, confirmations, wire verifications. The estate manager, a courteous man named Daniel, smiled warmly. You've secured an extraordinary property, he said. Any plans for it? Yes, I replied. It's going to be the headquarters for my new restoration and development firm, a place where women in real estate can grow instead of getting pushed aside. His eyebrows rose. That's remarkable. We don't hear that often. Someone has to shift the narrative, I said. He chuckled. Well, you certainly made one today. When I stepped back into the courtyard, my relatives were still there, smaller now, like their arrogance had leaked out through the cracks. Aunt Lorraine approached again, timid this time. Rachel, you actually bought it? Yes. She swallowed hard. We didn't know you were doing so well. That was the point, I said softly. You never asked. I want to caber and distended. Brielle shifted uncomfortably. So, what happens now? I adjusted my bag, offering a calm, genuine smile. Now? I build exactly the life you all said I never could. What happens now? I repeated, giving Brielle a calm smile. I go home. I keep working. I keep growing. And maybe one day you'll understand that success doesn't always look the way you expect. Their faces fell again, but this time no one argued. I turned toward the exit. Warm afternoon sunlight stretched across the stone driveway like a path leading me somewhere new. And for the first time in years, I felt fully, unmistakably free. 2 weeks after the auction, Hartwell Ridge no longer felt like a stranger's estate. The iron gates opened automatically as my car rolled in, evening lights softly illuminating the mile-long driveway. It felt surreal. It felt earned. It felt mine. Inside, the marble foyer echoed under my footsteps. The renovation team had cleared outdated furniture, leaving airy, open rooms ready to become something bold and new, my firm's headquarters. And the start of an entirely different chapter. I stood near the towering windows overlooking the gardens when my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. The media picked up your auction win. Congratulations again, Rachel. I smiled, not because of the press coverage, but because the story being told out there was finally mine, shaped by my work, not my family's expectations. Behind me, footsteps approached. Daniel, the estate manager, entered with a stack of documents, ready to review the layout. He asked. Absolutely. For the next hour, we studied every detail: workspace plans, conference rooms, the mentorship wing for women entering real estate development. With each blueprint, a new piece of purpose locked into place. Not revenge, not validation, just creation. When we finished, Daniel closed his folder. Your team is going to thrive here. And what you did at that auction, that wasn't just courage. That was history. Not quite, I said softly. It was years of work. He nodded. Well, you changed your story. After he left, I stepped onto the balcony. A warm Napa breeze brushed my shoulders, the sunset washing the estate in shades of gold. For a moment, I simply breathed. Then gravel crunching. I looked down. Aunt Lorraine, Brielle, and Trevor had pulled up in their car, shifting awkwardly, clearly unsure whether to approach or retreat. The sight no longer rattled me. I walked downstairs and opened the front door. You need something? I asked. Aunt Lorraine clasped her hands, voice trembling. We wanted to apologize. Trevor nodded quickly, his usual arrogance stripped away. Yeah. We didn't realize you were doing so well. Brielle swallowed hard, her voice nearly a whisper. We shouldn't have mocked you. It wasn't right. Their tone was different, quiet, unsteady, embarrassed. It was the first time in my entire life any of them had apologized for anything. I leaned against the doorway, not angry, just tired. Tired of the old narrative. Tired of fighting for something I never should have had to beg for. This was never about money, I said softly. It was about respect. About how you treated me. Aunt Lorraine lowered her gaze. We know. And we're sorry. I breathed out slowly. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Their shoulders lifted slightly, like they hoped this meant things would snap back to normal. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I'm not living in the past, I continued. I worked for this life. I built every piece of it without you. I'm not angry. I'm just done trying to earn approval I never needed. As never tension. Shock flickered across their faces, but they nodded. And in that moment, quiet, calm, free, I realized the real victory wasn't the estate. It was freedom. After they drove away, Hartwell Ridge fell back into its peaceful rhythm. Path lights glowed softly, fountains murmured in the courtyard, and the evening breeze drifted through the olive trees. For the first time, the estate didn't feel overwhelming. It felt like mine. I wandered through the halls, fingers tracing the polished banisters. This wasn't just property. It was proof of every risk I'd taken, every night I stayed up studying, every time I kept going when people expected me to collapse. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. "Everything okay? You sounded tense earlier." I typed back, "All good." They came to apologize. "I think this chapter is finally closed." A moment later. "Proud of you. You handled it better than most would." I smiled to myself. Grace wasn't something I was raised with. It was something I had to learn to protect myself, to grow, to survive. Stepping onto the stone patio, I inhaled the night air as cicadas hummed around the garden. This estate wasn't just the headquarters of my new company. It was the beginning of a life I built on my own terms. Without permission, without begging, and without needing validation from anyone who once dismissed me. The garden gate creaked open, and I turned as Daniel approached, a clipboard tucked neatly under his arm. "Didn't mean to interrupt," he said. "Just wanted to drop off the final blueprint revisions." I waved him over. "You're not interrupting." Honestly, I could use the distraction. He took a seat beside me on the stone bench, the evening breeze brushing through the olive trees. "Long day?" he asked. "A symbolic one," I said with a small laugh. "My relatives showed up. Tried to apologize." His brow arched. "And how did that go?" "I accepted it," I replied. "But I didn't let them back into a place in my life they never earned." Daniel nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Healthy choice." I looked out over the garden, lights twinkling along the paths. This estate. It's not just a business move for me. It's healing something I didn't realize was still bruised. He smiled warmly. "Then it's already worth every dollar." We sat in a quiet, comfortable silence, two people on a stone bench, watching a future grow out of old, buried wounds. "Rachel," he said gently, "I've worked with a lot of buyers. But I've never seen anyone reclaim their story the way you did." A warmth rose through my chest. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means more than you know." He stood and offered his hand to help me up. "Ready to review the new office wing tomorrow?" "Absolutely." As we walked toward the entrance, the estate lights flickered on one by one, glowing like small promises in the dark. I paused at the doorway, taking in the home that now belonged to me. The girl who once felt overlooked and underestimated was gone. In her place stood a woman who built her own path, her own company, and now, her own estate. My revenge wasn't buying the mansion. It was the quiet confidence of a life I shaped myself. A life that finally, fully, belonged to me. If you've been with me through this journey, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, did I do the right thing by standing my ground? Have you ever had to rise above people who doubted you? Your support means more than you know, because for years I felt like no one saw me. So if you're cheering for me now, say it. If you've walked a similar road, share it. And if you believe everyone deserves a chance to reclaim their story, let me know below. Your voice matters maybe more than you think.